Well, welcome everyone to our coaching cafe. It's wonderful to see so many people on the line. It's Natalie Ashdown here with you from Open Door Coaching. And today the theme is about how to give feedback when working from home. So before I begin, let me acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians on the lands on which we meet today and their continuing connection to the land, waters and communities of Australia. We pay our respects to them and to their elders past, present and emerging, and to anyone who might be on the line who is from a traditional owner or the custodians of the land. So our agenda for today, as you know, a great quick coaching cafe to join in together. Today I want to look at a little bit of the latest research around giving and receiving feedback in the workplace, just to frame this for you. And then I want to share with you some key tips around giving feedback whilst working from home. And I know there's a great number of really experienced coaches on the line. So as always, I'm really keen that we create this community of learning together. We share our shared learning experience and we have these thought-provoking conversations. So please, I know there's lots of experience on the line. Please just jump onto the chat box there and I will pick up your comments and share your comments and your questions and any of your thoughts with the group. So that's part of what we do. If you are collecting your ICF continuing coach education units, then just contact us at Open Doors at support@opendoorcoaching.com.au and we can send that certificate to you. So yeah, if you're new to the Coaching Cafe, welcome. We come together every Friday at 12 noon Australian Eastern Standard Time. It's early in the morning for some of you that come on the line from around the world. And we really are about sharing our ideas, exploring coaching, focusing on how we coach our clients or people in the workplace, how we can be better coaches ourselves. If you are a regular, I know there's lots of regulars on the line. It's just so great to see you. I love Fridays. I love coming together with you. So thanks for joining me. And the topics, whenever I choose a Coaching Cafe topic, I think about the themes that have been happening in our executive coaching or in the workshops that we've been delivering. And for some of you, well, most of you will know that Victoria has actually gone back into lockdown. And that's creating another round of interesting conversations within our executive coaching. What I've noticed, one of the themes that's been coming out of the executive coaching and the workshops that we've been running is this thing about feedback. So when people are working remotely and they're working virtually or they're working from home, how do we give feedback? And so that's the thing that we're going to actually have a look at today. It's compounded by the issues that because everyone's on Zoom, we've got people like executives going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, like click, start, click, start, click, start. And that ability to give and receive feedback for some people has been stripped away because we can't see people, bump into them in the corridor. We can't wander up to their desks. We can't knock on the door and come in and sit down in their office. So because we haven't got that natural ability that comes when we're actually in a physical office together, it puts a bit of a layer of complexity over how we do feedback. So I'd be really keen to hear your ideas. I've got some thoughts to share with you, but I'd be super keen to hear your ideas and what's happening. There's been a lot of commentary through the executive coaching around not being able to give feedback, finding it to be a bit more difficult to give feedback, a bit awkward to catch up with people. So we want to have a look at what we can do about that. So as I mentioned, jump into the chat when you've got some ideas. So the research, whenever I look for the research, I normally go to gallup.com.au. So they're always got some of the great, the latest research from the workplace on their website, freely available. If you type in the topic you're looking for, you often get articles on the topic and it's linked to the research as well. So it's a good resource to have a look at. The Gallup research, the latest research says that only 26% of employees strongly agree that the feedback they get helps them to do better work. There's a massive gap there, isn't it? If only 26% of employees think that the feedback, they strongly agree that the feedback they get helps them to do better work, that's 75% that don't strongly agree. Now, they could agree, there could be a percentage that agree or are neutral, and then the rest disagree. And the other statistic which was interesting to me is that there's only 14.5% of managers who strongly agree that they are effective at giving feedback. Now, there was a large percentage of people that agreed that they were effective, but when it comes to actually strongly agreeing that I believe that I'm effective at giving feedback, much smaller percentage there. And take a look at these numbers. Have a look at the employee engagement after giving feedback. So if the feedback has been positive, then you get positive engagement after the feedback. If the feedback has been negative, have a look at the engagement. So I've received some negative feedback, and therefore I'm completely disengaged. Like 90% of employees will lose engagement. They won't be engaged after they've received some negative feedback. So it's about how we go about giving that feedback, how we focus on people's strengths when we're giving the feedback. And how we can make that feedback exchange a positive exchange rather than having this negative impact. Now, you can imagine with people working from home, if the feedback's been given and then I don't see them or catch up with them for ages afterwards because we're on Zoom meetings, etc., then you can imagine that engagement, negative impact on engagement kicks in massively. The other thing is I can't see you. So I don't know if you're online or working from or what you're actually doing, and you might be disengaged because I haven't heard from you, but I can't even see you or check up on you. So I think the working from home creates an additional layer of complexity over the top of what's happening normally. So these statistics are from pre-working from home, and I'm waiting and hoping and wishing for the research that Gallup are going to do, which is post-working from home. And to have a look at the differences. So something to really think about in terms of how we're coaching managers to give feedback and the impact that the feedback's having. Look at the other result there. So once that they've received some negative feedback, some critical feedback, look at it. They're employees who are looking for employment after receiving feedback. So if they receive positive feedback, then about 60% of them are not looking. They might be passively looking, or only a small percentage are actively looking. Whereas if you can see the other where there's negative feedback, over half of people start going, well, that's it, I need to start, passively, not actively, but passively starting to look for a new job. And would you believe, you probably would believe, I've got a couple of executive coaching clients at the moment who I think are in that bucket, and we're working through those issues and topics together. Oh, Malcolm, that's a really good question. He said, would the percentages change if the feedback is related to clear KPIs rather than simply providing a negative feedback without context? That's a good question. I'll have to go back to the research actually and see whether the feedback was related to KPIs. I'm assuming that it wasn't without context, that the feedback that people were getting wasn't without context, but I don't know that for sure. So thank you. That's a really good question. We can go and check that. Yeah, Jodie, I'm with you as well. She says, interesting that almost 50% of employees are not engaged even after positive feedback. So yeah, see that, so even after they've received some positive feedback, there's still people out there who are passively looking or actively looking. Yeah. So yeah, very interesting, isn't it? I think this information is taken from 2018, the global study they did in 2018. So it might be different given that we've given the times that we've gone through. Yeah. So really good, strong reasons why we need to be doing feedback better. And let's just share some ideas together about what that might look like. So, I don't know how that got up there, that thing. So where to from here? That little thing should not be there up in the corner there, not to worry. Where to from here? So Gallup have made it clear through the work that they've done that what people really want is open, honest, a two-way dialogue that strengthens relationships rather than one-way instruction and criticism. And that little diagram comes from that little red cross says out with constructive criticism, but it's done a funny thing up there in the corner. But Anyway, so people want open, honest, two-way dialogue, something that strengthens the relationship, strengthens the work, rather than a one-way instruction and criticism. And we say out with constructive criticism, because when you think about constructive criticism, if you think about criticism, we're thinking about what's the impact on the person if you're just being, if it's just, you're just delivering criticism. And so if the impact is really negative on the person, then how can that be constructive? If it's criticism and it ends up with people being disengaged, then that's not constructive. So we really want to think about how can we do feedback well, and how can we do that in a working from home environment. And as I mentioned, jump in with your ideas here as well. Oh, there it is, constructive criticism. It's landed in the middle there as well. So we really encourage managers to practice giving feedback, and practice giving good feedback. That means the old Blanchard, remember Blanchard, 1 Minute Manager, said catch people doing things right. And this may be pretty familiar to you, and I'm looking at the experience on the line, and this will be totally familiar to you all. But being specific and being authentic, catching people doing things right, practicing saying thank you, it's so important. The reason I'm emphasizing that is because quite often in our coaching, particularly when we're doing like a leader as coach or a one-day coaching program, people I've had people on the program go, what? So now we've got to thank them for doing their work, do we? Oh, right. So now we've got to thank them for doing their jobs. And I'm like, yes, you do actually, because people are starved for thanks, and they're starved for feedback specifically about what they're doing well. So we need to be doing more of that. We need to be encouraging managers to be doing more of that, coaching them to be doing more of that, giving feedback as it arises. And the other important thing I think in this working from home environment is to ask for the feedback. So I think there's too much of an emphasis sometimes on managers having to give feedback. Like, I've got to give someone feedback, I've got to give someone feedback. But what about employees and staff members and team members taking the initiative and actually asking for feedback? So I'd be keen to hear what you thought about that work product. I'd be keen to hear whether you're happy with what's happened. It makes it so much easier on the managers if employees are actually, and staff members and team members are actually asking for feedback. So if we can encourage that culture, particularly in working from home, where we're giving and receiving and asking for feedback, I think that will make a massive difference. So I'll pause for a minute while you have a think about that. Practicing giving good feedback, giving it as it arises. In working from home, that could be as simple as sending a text message, popping a message on Teams if you're using it. I'd kind of stay off email, because email is an absolute killer at the moment for people. But, a quick phone call just to say, I love your work on such and such. Thank you very much. I like the way you did X, Y, Z. And just leave a voice message. That's a great thing as well. So a quick text message, a quick voice message. You don't have to get on a Zoom meeting to actually give feedback. So I think that's what's getting in the way, is that people think, well, because we're all on Zoom, how am I going to do this? And I'm just like, well, let's just take a different approach. Let's not have to go on Zoom in order to connect with people, or Teams or WebEx or whatever you're running at the moment. So let me pause. Let me see if there's any ideas you've got flowing here. Alrighty, so Jody says, yes, good idea to ask for the feedback. In my experience, managers can be very uncomfortable in giving feedback, especially to high performers. So they can misunderstand that the high performer wants feedback to be even better. Yes, I'm coaching 2 people at the moment where they both said, I want feedback. I'm not getting enough feedback. I want to make sure that what I'm doing is what's required. I want to continuously improve. I want to grow and develop. And I want the feedback. So they have been asking for feedback, but now we're going to do it more formally in a 360, a strength scope 360. So feedback which is based on strengths, and then encouraging people to contribute. So I agree. Angus says, all feedback should be positive if viewed from the point of view that it's designed to help people achieve the great things in the future. At Air Force's Officers Training School, we look at what has happened as simply a base from where to start, but it's in the past. We concentrate on the future. We do this by allowing the student to self-reflect, and then we act as the facilitator through asking coaching questions. What happened? What would you do differently next time? This allows them to take ownership and they thrive. It's positive experience because we're on their side and we want them to achieve great things. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It's very good of you. The Air Force in particular has a very strong culture of giving feedback, but taking the coaching approach, as you say there, Angus, to say what happened, what could you do differently next time? That means that people are taking ownership, they are thriving, they're self-reflecting, and we can add to that feedback as well. So thank you for sharing. That's a great example. Jody says hi to you. Lorraine says using feed forward method can be a great way to ask for feedback. Yes, so feed forward, I have a bit of trouble saying feed forward, but you're absolutely right there, Lorraine. So thinking about what we're doing next, what we're going to be working on. When we think about what we're going to achieve, what do we need to be aware of? So that's a feed forward. How can we actually, what feedback do you have, or when we think about what we're going to achieve, what do we need to be, you can say what feedback do you have, but then we can say what do we have to be aware of, how can we move forward? Lynn says, for managers who like the old school feedback, yes. Being brutal and honest, yes. Yes, I've had a lot of people say that, Lynn. You know, just give it to me straight. I'm brutal, I'm honest, I can be blunt, you know, these kind of things. To that kind of statement, I say that might be the case for you, but what impact are you having on the other person? So you might be brutal, blunt, give it to you straight, etc., etc. But if you do that, that might be the way that you like to receive feedback. No beating around the bush, no fluffy, duffy, wuffy stuff. Let's just get into it. That might be okay for you. But what about the person who's receiving the feedback? The other thing to think about is you might receive it like that, but the person might not be comfortable in actually giving it to you directly. So it's a difference in styles there. She says, people who like lots of constructive criticism, how can staff respond and influence these managers? It's a very good question, actually. I like to go with something along the lines of, when I think about what I'm trying to achieve, I need to let you know that when you say X, Y, Z, that's not really motivating me, or it's not really empowering me. So what we're talking about is when you do this blunt, brutal, blah, blah, it's having a negative impact on me. It takes a lot of courage actually to be able to say that. But what we do is we frame it when I think about what I need to be high performing, what I need to grow and develop, I would prefer feedback that is X, Y, Z, like focusing on what you need, focusing on how we can make this better, rather than just ripping my work to shreds. So I like to think about what is it I actually want. And I've been having this conversation in the executive coaching, I've been doing it as well. So you want feedback, what is it you actually want and for what purpose? So when I think about what I want and what I'm trying to achieve, I would appreciate if you could insert what you actually want. Or I need to let you know, if you just rip my work to shreds, I'm not learning and growing. I want to learn and grow. So could we think about this, this, and this? So we're focusing on what we want, and we can still put the feedback on the table, i.e. stop ripping my work to shreds, stop red penning my work, because that's not really motivating for me. But we're focusing on what we want in terms of to learn, to grow, to stretch, to high perform in this task. Hopefully that gives you some ideas. Lauren, thanks for your contribution. She says, what I'm finding difficult in terms of feedback is the mental state of the receiver after being at home now for 4 months and not coping very well with the lockdown. Yeah, it's true. I need to give feedback as we're having issues that I need to respond to, but it's a very fine balance to get the message across and have it register and still maintain a nurturing and supportive approach. that they need from their emotional state. I hope that makes sense. It does make sense, Lauren, because people, if they're not receiving feedback, but you need to give them some feedback, we're not in working from home, we're not aware of what their emotional state is fully because we can't see them. So it is something that we really need to be aware of. Let me give you this tool and see if this helps out with that situation as well. Thank you, Lynn. She says great advice. Jump in with your ideas as well, everybody. So I'm talking now about how do we do this quick feedback? How do we get this asking for feedback going, receiving feedback going? I'm talking about quick feedback here. We can run another webinar if you're keen on the actual courageous conversation, giving really difficult feedback. There's more to it than just what I'm going to suggest here. So if we have to do really difficult feedback, if we have to have a really courageous conversation, the layer and the complexity of working from home, there's more that we have to do. So I really want to focus on the get the ball rolling kind of feedback more than the difficult, full-on difficult conversations. So we can have another webinar on that as well. Just before we jump in, Jody says, one of the important elements of being successful in Angus's environment is the focus on being and doing your best. I love it. And the focus on performance and how people contribute to the overall mission. In very competitive cultures I've experienced, people receiving feedback tend to perceive it as being personal. Yeah. For example, in academic environments where the individual and their reputation are important for grants, etc., and competition for limited funds is fierce, feedback is most commonly interpreted as a personal attack. And she says, oh yes, Natalie, that'd be a good topic. Yeah, so we have to watch out about those personal attacks. We also have to watch out for people saying, now, I don't want you to take this personally. You know, people just do feedback so badly because they start out with, don't take this personally. And it's like, well, as soon as you say that, I know that I'm going to take it personally. So, you know, you're doing great work, but, you know, when people throw in the word but, it's like, yeah, what have you got to tell me? Here comes the bad stuff. So, yeah, we do need to watch out that we're talking specifically about the job task, what it is we want to see, what the output, what a good output, what success looks like, rather than playing the personal game. Yeah. Oh, some people are liking the difficult conversations. Great topic. Okay, so we'll look at that as well. We can definitely take a look at that topic for you. Alrighty, so quick feedback. We want to get the ball rolling on feedback, giving and receiving. So not so giving feedback, but asking. So rather than giving and receiving, I'm switching to giving feedback and asking for feedback. So asking for feedback within 48 hours of completing something. How do you think that went? What do you think we need to do better? And if we're giving feedback, we think about what we're trying to achieve. So if I think about some quick feedback I've had to give, then I'm trying to do it quite quickly, within 48 hours of coming up with it. That's the rule of thumb we find. And I'm thinking about what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to find a quick, easy way of being able to set up the coaching cafes. I've noticed that this is happening, so I wonder if we can. So here, what I'm thinking about is what I'm trying to achieve. I'm stating what's happening now, which is reality. Here comes the grow model. And then we're going to lead with, I'm wondering if. Now, some people think, I'm wondering with, so, you know, airy, fairy, mushy, dushy kind of language. That's my language. I'm wondering if, I wonder if we could consider, I'm thinking about such and such, what are your thoughts on X? That's my language. For people who don't do feedback very well, I would just copy my language and trust me that it works, or swap in the words that actually work for you. So it has to be what sounds authentic for you. I often get pushback from like technical people, real kind of, you know, your engineers and your scientists and your IT people who go, oh, that's fluffy language. I'm like, mate, put in an extra 3 words. It might be fluffy, but it helps get your message across. It helps bring your message across without people bringing up those barriers that stop them from being able to actually receive the feedback. So yeah, a couple of extra nice words and we'll get our message across. Stephanie says it may be trite, but being able to refer back and use the words set out in the positive descriptions have really assisted me in not taking personal feedback. Yes, I feel the same. So it's thinking about what is it we're trying to achieve. We're emphasizing the positive and we're stating what we would like to see moving forward. Great language, great coaching, great language makes a big difference. Yeah. And here's the little model that we use. The quick model. This comes from Agile. I think it comes from Agile sprint technology. We've been using this for a while and we've seen it come into Agile coaching and sprint coaching. So what we're thinking about is what we're trying to achieve. And with that in mind, what I would like to see if we could do more of blah, blah. If we could start having a think about how we do that easier. So what we want to do more of, what we need to start. With my team, we were getting overwhelmed with email. So I said, when I think about how we're communicating, when I think about how we're doing that, I think we need to start, we need to find a different way of communicating. I think we need to do less email. I think we need to stop with the backwards and forwards of the email. Let's start doing this, this, and this. What do you think? What do you guys, what ideas do you have? So I'm giving feedback to my team. I'm saying to my team, the email and backwards and forwards and it's killing me in terms of trying to keep up with the important messages, making sure that I'm taking actions I need to take. So can we start using, and we've started using Microsoft Teams more. So can we start using Microsoft Teams? Can we do more of backwards and forwards, quick chats on that? And can we stop using email? So let's use email for the following and let's start using Microsoft Teams for everything else. So here I've been able to do feedback. I'm telling my team what the impact of the email is on me. I've been able to say what I think we need to do, and then I open it up for what do you think is going to work? Can we trial something? How can we improve? How can we stop with the email barrages? So that's kind of a straightforward, quick bit of feedback. And it's these kind of things where we can focus on what we're trying to achieve and how we can continuously improve that can be done very easily. Now, that conversation can be done, I don't want to say it has to be done over email, but when we're working from home, those conversations could be easily done on your morning calls when you all Zoom in together. It could be easily done, just with a quick phone call. So we've been using Microsoft Teams quite a lot now and videoing in people. We've been chatting over Teams. We've been, so rather than emailing and doing heaps of that, we've just been picking up the phone and communicating. So when we're working from home, I think there's a tendency to think that people aren't available, like you can't ring them, you can't text them, whereas actually that human connection is really important. So there's some of the things I've been thinking about as well. So have you got other thoughts, questions? Oh, sorry, we just realised Stephanie was saying that refer back and use the word set out in position descriptions. So if you think about position descriptions and what they're describing and how they describe the work and how they describe attitudes and behaviours, then we can focus on what's in the position description rather than personal feedback as well. So again, we're focusing on what it is we'd like to see. Yeah, thank you. Great. I found the stop, start, less of, more of so easy and so useful. I think about what I'm trying to achieve and I say, can we start doing this? And in saying start, well, if we can start doing this, what I'm basically saying is stop what you're doing now. You can actually say that as well, but we're thinking about what we want to see more of, what we'd like to have happen, rather than the criticism. Sarah, thanks for your comment. She says, I think it was PwC Global Crisis Report that said high-performing teams have the, okay, this is great, yeah. So high-performing teams have the confidence to be vulnerable with each other. Do I have confidence to raise an issue and openly discuss a different view with my team? Right now, managers really have an opportunity to capitalize on what it feels like to be vulnerable through our own experiences in lockdown. Can managers think of coaching questions related to vulnerability and self-awareness, and then make that link to the purpose of feedback? So generating safe environments for people to freely express their views and make the links. I think it's really important. We're focusing on making sure that we're looking after people's mental health, that we're focusing on looking after them from an environmental point of view. So let's get the ball rolling on feedback. Practice on the little bits and pieces, and then we can have more credits in the bank when we have to do the difficult stuff as well. Malcolm, I agree with you. He says the importance of being able to see people when giving feedback, for example, being on video can't be underestimated. Yes, you're right. So it's really important, depending on what kind of feedback you're giving. It's even if you're doing this quick stuff where you think something needs to change or something needs to shift or something needs to be different. So they're good words to use as well. I'd like to talk about how we can change this, shift this, do something differently here. So when you think about what we're trying to achieve, if we want to change, we want to do something differently, great way to actually open up the conversation. I wonder what we can do differently here because this is not working for me. Great, I've just said this is not working for me, but because I've led with what can we change, what can we do differently, we're able to then lead on with the conversation. So the importance of being able to see someone and have that conversation is, yeah, it's a great pickup. Thank you. Angus says, the only thing I would suggest for the example you gave when telling the team that email's killing you and then ask for suggestions before giving yours. Oh, actually, that's really great. Yeah. So he says, the only thing I would suggest, the example you gave around email, like I'm drowning in email, is to let them know that that's happening for me and then ask for suggestions before giving mine. So excellent coach approach. Thank you. So that it doesn't look like the solution has already been decided. Yeah. They will feel more involved that way. Your thoughts? 100% agree with you. Yeah. 100% agree. Yeah. So I feel like I'm just drowning in email, getting way too many emails. How can we work as a team to address this? What can we do as a team? What ideas have you got? But also finding out how are they experiencing it? So am I the only one that's having this difficulty, or how are you experiencing that situation? So having that two-way conversation and that two-way dialogue, coming up with the options together, letting the team come up with their ideas and solutions so that you're right. I haven't just decided we need to do this. Great coaching approach. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the pickup. Alrighty, I can't believe it. We're right on time already. So we actually have a $95 workbook around feedback if you're interested. Leader as Coach has got information on the Leader as Coach program that we're running has got information on this topic as well. Of course, it's included in our certificate for in workplace and business coaching. So as always, I hope you enjoy your coaching. I hope these ideas have given you some a bit of a prompt here and there. And you can take those little models that we've talked about and share them with your team and see how you go with it as well. So thank you, everyone. I know you have to go. We're right on time. It's been great to see you all. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy your coaching. And I look forward to catching up with you at our next session. Thank you once again.